Ugh, that was
Just the two of us.
just the two of us.
Watchers. It's summertime.
People are out partying and driving boats and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I don't blame them. I would be too if I could, like, have a boat.
I know. Ugh,
Or a Jeep, even.
ugh.
Yeah. They got the new transmission put in it, but then they found more broken parts. So they're fixing that up.
I found a sweet house in White Lake off Ormond Road, and it's a colonial, nice 3 bedroom, 2 bathroom with a 2 car attached garage, and it's got a pole barn in the back, and it sits on three
What?
acres. Yeah, and it's got waterfront, and it's only like 2,300 or 230. But there's a catch:
What? What's the catch?
bad plumbing, no running water.
That's I mean, it's a lot and it's not all at the same time.
I know, but
Hey, we
it's
got
not
a
in my
viewer.
budget.
How do you know?
I don't know. I'm just assuming so, but like we need a house that's kind of like move-in ready, you know.
Okay.
In
I mean, so
case we go.
sometimes in those situations you can get a loan for, if the value of the house is more than what they're asking, sometimes you can get a loan for more and have the work done before you move in. It'll slow down, things, but what's
And
up,
look,
y'all?
it's the first two that always comment.
They did it. They're here. So what are
Yeah,
we talking
they
about today?
uh some changes. I don't know. Long time to watch. I've been lame. It's
All
okay.
right.
I
We've
feel
been
bad.
lame too. You didn't miss anything.
I always feel bad that I always make you watch me, but I never watch you. Maybe I should make a change. Maybe I'll watch your next guest viewer that you bring on. I don't know. I just been so busy. I don't really have time to watch stuff.
You don't even have time to do your job some days. It's terrible. Yesterday was miserable. But yesterday was crazy. Just at the end of the day, though, things went kind of smooth leading up to that. But then all of a sudden, the last 30 minutes of the day was just ridiculous. You know me, if you get it before UPS gets here, it's going out today. And oh my God, everybody followed those ideas.
It's 1 hour, or you can go back and check it out. If you watch any, go watch the Panama City beach story I shared today. Okay, well, I'll go and do that. Tried to replace mine and used the glue, and it's not smooth. So I just ordered the double sided tape. You know, somebody told me. Oh, I think it was Aaron Fournier. He said use some Teflon tape.
You still have to have that initial cut strip on there, and it does need to be smooth. Teflon tape's not a bad idea though. Um, some people use Gorilla tape. Some people use painter's tape. Over at Tint
Mine
Squad, we're still
mine
hard
feels
headed.
like
We don't use
masking
anything.
tape.
You haven't even changed yours or nothing.
No, which I should, because I did a very bad a week and a half ago.
Get out
So
of it.
no, so look, I went back and I changed the blade depth, and it was pretty much perfect, right? Like it was cutting um at like the lowest possible force, but like I just still couldn't like it wasn't separating. So that's where I just started dialing it in by like hitting the force like one up until I finally got to the right point, and then it was perfect. And then so I finally go to like plot a pattern, and then I have the velocity all the way down too, the speed. So it's just like, you know. And I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna turn the speed up on this. Well, without actually paying attention to details,
What you did.
I was actually, well, so like I turned it up to from like 70 to like 120 just because that was like a good number to stop at because it was just taking forever. I was just like, okay, like we'll see what this does, and it was like still too slow. And then I changed it to like 200, and the speed still seemed the same. And so then I just was like, fuck it, and I cranked it all the way up to 500, and the next thing you know, it's just ripping my film everywhere. And then I look at it, and it was like, nope, speed is still at 70, force is at 500. I'm like, oh no.
You're over there trying to cut security film with regular film.
And then, like, now what it's doing is like, now that I got the velocity and the force to where I want it, it's doing that thing where like I start peeling off the liner, but there's every like random spots where it's just still like hooked on and doesn't want to peel off. And so I'm like, maybe I don't know. I could have destroyed my blade. I could have destroyed my cut strip. My cut strip honestly looks fine, but like I don't know. Maybe I got it. I'm using cheap Amazon blades too. I still haven't got those blades you told me about. Well, I mean, I still got like 12 of them left.
Yeah, it's funny how many of those you can get for like a nickel. And the ones I told you about, I think are 35 or $40 a piece.
Yeah,
And
cut strip
there's probably a
problem.
difference. Be a bunch of things.
But I don't know. I don't know.
But the bottom line is, so here's the thing that just people won't listen. I don't know why it doesn't make sense. It makes sense to me. But if your blade is not out far enough to cut all the way through the film, I don't care if you have it on 500. All you're going to do is drag the film. It's going to shift as it plots, but it's not going to cut all the way through because the blade just won't reach. But for some reason, everybody seems to want the blade to be able to cut all the way through, and then they want to set the force just right so that accidents can happen. If the blade can't cut all the way through, an accident can't happen, right? I mean, does that
I don't
make
know.
sense?
I feel like the only time that the blade force really makes sense is like how we have presets at Tint Squad and you switch from like Avery to Helios.
Right.
So if you got one film where the liner's thicker than the other film, then
Not the
you're
liner
not
of the
gonna.
film, but
Yeah, that's what I meant.
yeah, so if your film's a little bit thicker, then you have to toy with the force a little bit because the thinner film, if you can cut the thicker film, then you'll probably be able to cut through the thinner film. And I mean, for a while we used two separate blade holders, but they'd get mixed up and accidents would happen. So we fine tuned it. And you know what? I haven't touched that plotter in years. And I just kind of put it on Charles, like you figure it out. And as far as I know, he's figured it out.
I figured
Because,
out the cheat code for mine, and it was for the blade depth. The little holder, and it's got the two dials, right? So I just kept the one dial kind of loose and floating, so that way, like as it's plotting, I could just like turn the top dial to where I want it, and then lock the bottom dial.
the, the locking nut or jam nut is
Yeah,
what keeps the blade from self adjusting because you don't want that to happen. So that part needs to be snugged down after you find your depth. But I mean, so for anybody who's unsure about how to set their platter up, you start out with like the lightest setting, or not necessarily, if you got 0, 1, 2, 3, like a graph tech, you're probably not going to start at 1 and work your way up because time. But start with the blade all the way in, and like for instance, because I'm familiar with Graftex, start with like 7, or I'm sorry, I'm doing that wrong. Um, Start with like 15, but the hard part is to know where your you're cutting at. Now with a Graphtec, you can take a brand new blade and you can be anywhere from 15 to 25 and you're safe. And then you'll start, and I start at 15 because I know for a fact that one of these clean cut blades will cut through Helios at 12 if I'm trying to balance the, but the problem is you get a day like when you're running air conditioning, you don't have quite the power. The servos in the machine aren't going to put exactly the same pressure every single time. So then you'll just drop the blade in and eventually you're going to start seeing it score the film, but yet it doesn't quite cut it. You turn it just a little bit more, quarter turn at a time, and try it again, and it's still not all the way through, and then do it again until eventually you're starting to get that little test cut all the way through. Now you need to waste some film because test cuts and full cuts are different. I don't know why, they just always are. You can get a perfect test cut and be like, oh, this is perfect, and then you cut your first pattern and you're like, oh, I got snags. So what I used to do is after the test cut runs perfect, turn it one more quarter turn down and lock it, but that's not always 100% either. So the easiest thing to do and just accept that you're going to waste some film is when your test cut's good, then you cut a pattern. What I'll do is I'll shrink the pattern down so it's a small pattern, but it still needs to be a full rotation around something. And then you cut the pattern and you find out if you have any snags. And if you do have snags, then you turn another quarter turn, cut it again. And at some point, you're going to have a perfect test pattern, and then you cut a full size pattern. And once you've cut a full size pattern, if you're using like a 40-inch roll, you can take your full size door pattern and turn it sideways because you want to use the entire stretch of it. Because sometimes the one end is going to be different than the other end as it's cutting. And you're going to balance where that blade is. But if you're cutting a good test cut and you're cutting a good small pattern and you're still having problems on one end or the other of your film, instead of continuing to lower your blade, now you start raising your force, because if you have an uneven spot in your cut strip, that's going to cause a little bit of a problem, and a little bit more force a lot of times will fix that. But again, if your blade's out far enough to cut all the way through, more force isn't going to solve your problem. And then you see these people online all the time saying, I don't get it. I just changed the blade. I changed the cut strip, and on one part it's cutting all the way through and on another part it's not. Well, his blade's out too far because it shouldn't be able to cut all the way through. And with his blade out not far enough or just far enough, then he's still going to have that problem. On one side is going to be fine, and on the other side is going to be too deep or too shallow. If you ever have one side that's too deep, shorten your blade length. When you get one side that's just right and one side that's not deep enough, then you start adding force and test it until, I mean, if you gotta waste 20, 30 feet of film, so be it. Who doesn't have scrap rolls of film laying around? Or
I might have a dumb question.
Okay.
Does blade direction matter?
So the blade should spin freely inside of the blade holder, and that's another thing that's a no-no buying the Amazon ones, because sometimes they work fine, but more times than not, they'll stick. And if the blade doesn't swivel properly around inside that blade holder, the blade has a little cut angle on it. That's where the 25-degree, 30-degree, 45-degree, and 60-degree blades come in. And you want a 25 or a 30-degree for your window film, because it's that instead of having a sharp, like a 60 degrees like this and a 45, and then your 25 or 30 degree is like this. So it's kind of like basically take your knife here. We'll get closer to the camera. Take your knife. This is about a 25 or 30 degree. This is how the blade part of your blade, and it's small. It's really hard to see, but this is how it's angled. So when, and it's just a really small part, but when the plotter moves in and out and this goes back and forth, this thing's going to follow the curve. So that holder the bearings need to be really good. The cheap Chinese holders, they may stick right brand new, and if it starts to turn, remember, you've got such a tiny little amount of a blade surface there that it needs to be able to swivel freely. It can't have any resistance. And so the downfall to that is those blade holders are typically $100, $105 for a legit one. Most, can you lube them? Yes, you can lube them, and it'll work for a few cuts. The Chinese ones, the problem is they're not using good internals. They're not using good tolerances. A lot of your OE stuff is going to be made in Japan, and Japan is all about the tolerances and the good quality stainless steel inner parts, where you'll, with the what do you call it, the Chinese ones, a lot of times you're going to get brass or steel, and it's gonna get kind of yucked up.
What's up,
But
Johnny?
and
Glad you can make it.
the other problem, a lot of people are like, I have skipping on the corners. When it rounds a corner, it's almost jagged like. That could be one of two things. It could be your blade holder. They do get gummed up from the glue after a long period of time, but it does happen when they get older. It could be that, or it could be your blade depth is too much. Because keep in mind, oh, I wished I had one right here. But keep in mind, let's look at this pen for instance. See how it's got that tip sticking out? Now, imagine there's an angle on the tip of this that has to, when it curves, it has to rotate. Now, the farther that's out, the more it's gonna give resistance, or give a bind. So when it's trying to rotate, if it's going this way, it might pull back this way, or vice versa. See what I'm saying? So the closer that is to the tip, see, if you barely got any sticking out, now it can rotate freely, and it's got no bind. Kind of think of it like a really, really tight nut or bolt, and you grab a socket, and you grab a deep well socket, and it doesn't need to be a deep well socket, and it's too tight, and the socket kind of wants to twist a little bit on it. So you go grab a shallow socket so that it's closer to the bolt and it spins more straight, if that makes sense. I don't know.
That makes sense.
But it's the same concept, physically. Inside of that blade holder, the further the blade sticks out, the more tension's going to be on the edge of it when it's moving, trying to round corners. So you'll get skipping, chattering, and it'll be real small, but sometimes you'll get uneven stuff. And any amount of drag, how many of you guys have cut a pattern and the start and stop isn't exactly the same? That's from drag. I know a lot of people are like, oh, you need to change your cut strip, or oh, your roller's bad, and chances are your roller's not bad. Chances are you're dragging too much on the film. And that's why blade length and blade force is a balance. Like I said earlier, you should be able to take your force all the way up to 500 and not cut through the film, but that's going to cause drag on the film because you're putting too much pressure on it, and the rollers can't hold everything exactly square. Well, it's pulling, it's dragging over here, but it's not dragging over there. So over here there's no slip, and over here there's just ever so slightly amount of slip. And when it gets back to the beginning, you're like, hey, this is off. And sometimes a little less force is going to help with that. And also different plotters, like I know the Graph Tech, you got two different settings, well, three different settings on the roller. All the way up is just dangling, and then one click down is light force, and two clicks down or all the way down is heavy force, or vice versa. All the way up is heavy force, and
Yeah.
in the middle, and you know what I'm saying. So there's a chance that you want the force to be all the way on the rollers, but you can see if your roller's bad. And
Dude, my rollers suck.
can you see them suck?
No, so you know the bottom rollers? I got the grippy metal bottom roller, but it goes all the way across.
All of them do.
No, I the one the Graph Tech, it's got only the one that goes out like 6 inches, and then it's got
Okay,
like little
so
spots.
the Graph Tech goes all the way across also. It's just that there's a plate over top of it with cutouts.
Oh,
So, but the grit roller, that's never the problem because the grit roller is solid from one side to the other. So wherever the roller sits on it here or sits on it here, that grit roller underneath is one continuous rod all the way down. What sucks about yours being all the way across?
well, it's not just that, but like the starting point of the roller and where the plotter head moves is literally like at like, so if I'm standing behind the plotter, it's like all the way end to end.
Yeah.
So
Well,
so
see, with like vinyl, you can get away with that because it's got a paper backing, and your plotter was probably designed with only vinyl in mind, and it didn't have a problem. But there's got to be an origin setting,
I,
and
I I can't, I don't know if it's like there's like really not a whole lot of settings to the plotter itself. So I was like curious to see if there's a way to do it through computer cut or the software itself to trick it into thinking, because it doesn't do the thing like the Graph Tech where it like spits out a little bit of film and then like the plotter head like censors it and then
yeah,
it comes back. Like mine doesn't have a sensor. It
it
just
just
goes.
starts where you put it. It's like, okay, this is how wide the rollers are, so this is how wide I'm cutting.
Yeah, which is like not bad, but like what I have to do is be very careful how I position it on the artboard, and then I have to like not do the cut selected. I have to do the cut all. So it makes things frustrating because now I have to like open the windows up individually and lay them out individually instead of allowing it to like automatically arrange stuff because like I get the roller imprints.
Right. Yeah, you definitely don't want a roller where your pattern is. I'm gonna look into computer cut here real quick and see if I can find a setting like that. That'd be something to reach out to customer support though, and he would know. And if he doesn't have it, then it'd be a good suggestion. Can we create an origin that by default can be zero, but like film and vinyl designs, when um it ends where your little cut line would be on your plotter, just a little bit of your pattern is hanging over that you cut, and if you don't remember to move it forward, you cut the edge of your door or whatever off, and it's like, oh fuck, and um film and vinyl designs, in one of their menus you can actually add length to the end of the cut. And I've never had, my plotters have always done the origin on its own, so I've never had to look into this, but I'm just curious. Account setting, password, cancel, edit, select
The
all,
plotter
recent.
itself still needs a starting point, is what Brendan is saying.
Yeah.
So maybe I just need a V4 manual.
I mean, maybe because there's got to be a setting where you can tell it this is where you start. Even if you have to do it every time you load a roll, at least it would alleviate the cutting where the grit roller is. The other thing is too, and computer cut, if you want to trick it, is just select the patterns that you're going to cut and use your up arrow and just give it a couple of ups until it's past that edge, and then when you cut, it's going to cut it where you just told it to cut. But
Oh,
remember, computer cut, when you first pull them into the cut window, it's going to arrange them the way that it thinks they should be. So it's always going to bring it down to zero. So you'll want to move it up a little bit.
on your plotter, it may be called something different.
Probably in Chinese.
Yeah, it's just a rebranded Chinese plotter. Um,
Okay, let me go into the cut window here. Let's see here. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, so I mean, if you select the pattern and just give it a couple ups,
oh yeah, that's what I do on like already. Most likely.
that secret.
Yeah, they're so cheap. Oh yeah, here's mine. It's a different color now. Yeah.
Well, you can paint it any color you want to. Wrap it. Have it powder coated.
Maybe. We used to have the whole powder coating set up at my grandma's, but I think she threw it away. It was my grandpa's old powder coater.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I didn't even know it was a powder coater until I learned what a powder coater was like a couple years ago. I just thought it was sand that I always liked to play in when I was a kid. I didn't really play in it. I just like to like put my hands in the sand bucket because it was like very soft sand. Had good texture. Yeah, I don't know. What's up, Jason? What's up, Window Tinting Queen? We got everyone on here today.
What kind of plotter do you have? What's it called?
It's called the VEVOR. I don't remember the name. I know it's the 34-inch. Um,
I got a 1350, 1375, 720, or 870.
the 870.
That's the like biggest number. Assuming the number
Yeah,
probably. Okay.
it's the 34-inch 870. But it seems like the buttons on it are
Okay,
different from
so
the pictures I'm seeing.
when
Oh no, I think
when
it's
you
the
s-
540.
I don't have a 540 option.
Oh, it might be
Oh
the
well,
870.
we'll just pick one. So on your setup, as you're setting it up, it says that it's got advanced media after cut,
Mm.
and starts at 0, but that's when it's done cutting. How far do you want it to advance the film?
Oh,
So,
okay.
like when you cut your film off the platter, where do you cut? Do you have to move it to cut?
I do. I have to move it up
So
like a half an inch.
figure out how far you have to move it, and I assume this is in inch form. So go back and edit or set up a new plotter or whatever you have to do to get back to the screen, and you can put that like 0.5 or whatever it is, and then when it's done cutting, it'll line up where you want to cut it instead of having to do that. So that's one thing.
Yeah,
um
that helps.
Let me finish that.
What do you call that slit you can cut through? It doesn't have one of those either, so that kind of sucks.
Oh, the cross cut.
Yeah, it doesn't have like a cross cut
Oh,
spot.
yeah, well, that's just how the Graphtex built. It's not designed to be a cut slit. It just is what we use because
Oh.
our blade fits down in it and it cuts straight. So it's wonderful. Oh, okay. So
What
tool
up, Adam?
actions.
How you doing, bro? Yeah, when I'm at Tint Squad, all I do is just put the film in, I press the buttons, and it works. I don't know any of the other things, so I totally feel you there.
My first plotter, we bought directly from Solar Guard, and they came and set it up for us and showed us how to use it. So they left, and for the next 2 years, it just worked. But eventually your blade starts getting dull. So, but that was back in 2003. So by 2005, I was learning how to work the plotter.
T Tau says we all know he's got the SC2 and he hates it.
So on your cut window, if you hover over cut, you can go to plotting defaults. It's going to pull up the screen with your selected plotter, and you can click setup, and it only has, that's so stupid. It only has additional X move at end. It doesn't have like an option for resolution advanced. Oh, origin adjust. Okay, on the plotter options screen. Okay, let's do this. So I don't know how many people's platter's going to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Window. Okay, so let me cancel out of all this. So on your cut window, you're going to go up here to cut, plotting defaults, and then on this, you'll want to click setup next to your machine. And then up on the top here, you're going to want to click plotter options. Then over here, it ain't let me select it, but it's got origin adjust and X and Y. Now it might not, it might be because it hasn't actually communicated with my plotter yet, but right here,
I would
oh, that's
change
me.
the X
Okay.
over a little bit.
Yeah, X or Y. I don't remember which one's which.
Well, I think X is side to side, and then I think Y is the film going out and in.
That's what I thought, except for it's got the X over here. It's got the additional X move at end, which I assumed that was gonna, I
Oh,
don't know.
split the film out more.
Yeah. Which would make sense because you're supposed to be looking at it as a roll. So the bottom you would think would be the side closest to you when you're looking at the plotter, but I think the bottom is really when you're standing beside it looking at the roll as it comes out, left to right. So, like, instead of looking at it like it's coming towards you, stand over here, and now it's coming from here that
To the
way.
side.
And so then I don't know. But I would play with that and see what that does. And if you can do that, you know, resolution, edit, no, advance.
Because it's X and Y based off of Computer Cut's artboard.
Right. That's what I would, yeah.
Okay. Oh.
It also got an overcut, but that'll make it bigger or smaller. So
Man,
that's
wait
not
until the
it.
window tint stuff people find out that you can use Computer Cut on Amazon plotters.
Computer Cut is the originator of computer aided software for window tint. I mean, they're the ones who invented it. Everyone else is just following and trying to figure it out. And um, some people have gotten some things better, some people have not. Um, but the bottom line is, it seems to be the most robust as far as all that goes. But that's where I would look to see if you can adjust that one spot right there. And who knows, maybe you can. And if you can, then maybe that solves your problem with the roller. Otherwise, you're just, you bought a cheap plotter that you can't adjust and you're forced to have to move your patterns every time you cut, or else it's going to cut where the roller is.
Oh, shoot. I got an order. I'll be right back.
All right. So yeah, the Clearview says I couldn't get used to the new computer cut update. So I played around with a lot of different things. So it had been a lot of years since I used a computer cut when we went back to it this time. So honestly, um, what's up, Adam? Um, so they had already went to the new Computer Cut Pro by the time I switched back, and I had forgotten so much. That's the other problem when you jump from software to software looking for the next greatest thing. You you learn the new softwares and you forget a lot about that behind you. And honestly, so what I'm noticing about Computer Cut is that everything it used to be is still there. It's just they added so much more functionality to it that it seems like it's hard to find what you were used to. It used to be a really simple program. And then they'd add this feature or that feature one at a time. And that's always cool. I love it when they add one feature at a time because it doesn't change your whole UI, it just gives you a new feature. But when they upgraded to Computer Cut Pro, they rearranged the entire thing. And it's like, I mean, I got to agree with you. If I was using it at the time they did that changeover, I might have been pissed. But the good news is, like I said, I was a long time outside of Computer Cut when um, I went back to it and it was changed. So, it's just like relearning something all over again. And I'll tell you, I used film and vinyl, I used DAP, I used 3Ms, I used um, 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 most of them, I guess. And Computer Cut still is like it. They just, I don't know. Apparently, the program was on Java format, and they were no longer supporting Java, so they had to change. That makes sense. That makes sense. And I believe it was a Java based, and now Java's like no more. So, or Java is more. I don't know. There was some back end changes that did force the change, which some people would say that it was a good thing, needed to happen. But um, Computer Cut was your all time favorite. Well, you should try it again. What are you using now? That would be a good question. And did you know that if you went to my website and actually, let me do that. We'll go to my website and click on the Computer Cut. DAP's good. Problem with DAP is, I mean, I used DAP for a long time, and obviously being a distributor of Avery and Helios, I wasn't going to buy their film, but those folks really liked me and they took care of me and they let me use their software right up until, over the last couple of years, changes have been happening around there. And believe it or not, we still use DAP for PPF, even though I don't understand why we do because they charge $300 a month. And it on one hand, it seems ridiculous because it's so much more than everything else. But then again, so is Computer Cut. Computer Cut, if you don't use their film, they want to charge you so much more than everything else. But that's where I come in because I have a couple of things. And thing number one, go ahead and open this up again. Thing number one is I can offer you the 30-day trial. You add it to cart, it goes in there, boom, you're in. And also, let me pick this. Also, I offer the whole thing, and check this out. And DAP patterns are very good. I enjoyed DAP patterns. I would have never left DAP, but when they came at me and told me that I could pay them $600 a month for PPF and Tint, I had to make choices because, yeah, no. So with Computer Cut, if you get it from me and it's the same Computer Cut, it's directly from Computer Cut. I just get to be a reseller and I don't have to follow their rules. So I don't have to charge you $360 or whatever they charge if you don't use their film. Um, if if you want just tint patterns, You can go monthly or yearly, but Tint Patterns is $150 a month. PPF Patterns, $150 a month. Check this out. Tint and PPF Patterns, $200 a month. I do that because I can do that for you. Yeah, $600 a month is what we was told if we wanted to use Tint and PPF. Now, Brittany, she's a stickler for using PPF, so we're still paying $300 a month for PPF. And yes, $200 a month for both. Now, because of their new UI that they went to, they got a third party licensing company that charges a $250 sign up fee for your license. What they'll do is license your computer for you. And they're going to license your computer for you and you're locked in. That way, other people can't log into your shit and screw up your account and all that other stuff. But if you want to pay by the year, and that's a charge that I get no matter what. And because I charge so little for you, if you decide you want to pay for the year, you can do yearly Tint Patterns, yearly PPF, or yearly both. I'm going to charge you the full $1,800 for the year because I'm already rock bottom pricing. But you notice over here, there's no $250 sign up fee. I'm going to eat that because if you pay for a year, there's enough money there for me to pay your $250 sign up. And the same thing if you go Tint and PPF, you're like $2,400. That's $200 a month for an entire year, and I'm going to eat your sign up fee. So it's one of those, however you want it. I got your back. Because apparently, people in this industry think that I'm something, and I don't get it. I'm just a tinner like you guys. I'm a guy that had an opportunity to become a distributor, so I thought I'd take it. And I just try to do it exactly the way that I would have preferred somebody do it for me when I was out there titting buying from distributors and trying to just make a living. You know what I mean? So yeah. No, you really can't. Film cut, which is just digicut, which is about the most stripped down version of a software program you can get. The patterns, I haven't heard a lot of good things about them. And I mean, don't get me wrong. Every, Clearview, you can tell me how patterns are on DAP. My experience was I loved them. Most of them were spot on, except for when they weren't. Some of them weren't. They just weren't. You know, most of these companies, here's the thing, most of these companies bought their older pattern databases from this guy right here because he's the one that created them way back in, I think it was in the 90s. And Digi isn't bad. It just I haven't heard. I mean, also I guess I can deal with the 2%. Yeah, yeah. No, and I haven't heard any complaints about the PPF patterns at all on Computer Cut. When I started doing PPF way back in the day, I used Computer Cut. Brittany, on the other hand, she fell in love with DAP and she just isn't interested in trying something new. And I don't make the decisions over there, so she gets her way. Even though they have Computer Cut, PPF, and that's what you ought to do. Well, Brittany has PPF jobs. You guys should try to talk her into using Computer Cut. Have her give feedback. Although if she doesn't want to use it, she'll probably give bad feedback because phone made a noise. It was. That was one of the other keg makers asking me how my supplier's doing on ball lock connectors because apparently he's running out. I'm like, I don't know. I buy 1,000 of them at a time. I try not to have to buy these things over and over and over again. That's the other thing. We got so many suppliers to deal with. It's crazy. Oh, Alex is feeding the UPS guy. Oh my God, it's 10 minutes to 5. Where has this hour gone? It's crazy. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to multitask. Alex should be here talking to you and entertaining you and doing songs and dances for you. You see, load there. What do I want? Well, oh, yeah. Oh, no. Damn it. Maybe it was this one. Nope. Damn it. Maybe it was the third one. Ugh. Ah, that said we're basically 200 short at this point. Current orders consume 186 of them.
I just realized that I've been talking this whole time with my mic muted.
Oh, well, we was ignoring you.
Tallman, was that supposed to go to the Eastman guy or not the Avery guy? Because I thought when you messengered me, you said Avery.
I don't know, but how many liquid ball lock connectors do we have in stock?
Liquid ball connectors. We
Yeah.
had,
Do we have
I
200
think.
of them?
I can check. I feel like we have like a lot.
Ordered. Oh shit! I only ordered 250 last time, so I doubt we have 200. I told them that we ordered. Oh,
Hold on,
now we have a
guys.
customer.
I'll be right back.
All right, all right. We'll just put this whole thing on hold. I don't know. Let's see. I'm about to take my butt to softball practice and sweat to death, sweat to death out there. All right, Tim, we'll see ya. Um, Jeremy uses Digi for tint. Aren't they like, I don't know, 90 or $100 or something like that, $110 a month? They're Digi's cheap, but I mean, they're not. I mean, I don't know. I was spoiled 99. Okay, $100. I was spoiled getting into the computer cutting game, and I got to play around with all the expensive ones first. And then when you go to the cheaper ones, you just see all the things that you don't have. And it's like, film and vinyl design. I love their platform. I just wasn't a big fan of their inconsistency in the patterns. We would have, a pattern be spot on for a while and they would get a tip and they would change it. And this was happening during the onset of all the people starting to buy the Chinese plotters that needed to be calibrated. And so they didn't realize that they were getting complaints from people that had uncalibrated machines, so they were making changes based on information that somebody who spends $6,000 on a plotter, um it's dialed in, it's running right, and it doesn't have any calibration issues, and um then they make changes and it's like, what the hell? They're like, well, we got complaints on this, so we made some adjustments. And I'm like, the pattern's too goddamn big or it's too small. So, that's the same thing with these Chinese Titan plotters. People start buying them and everything. And I thought, well, isn't that cool? Let me check one of those out. In fact, the first Jaguar that I saw, I was like, oh my God, it's so loud. It's so rigid. I was used to Graph Tech, and there's a big difference from one to the other. Um, but they both get the job done. And if you start out with the other, then you won't know what's not there or you won't know what's different. And as far as top edges, depending on the vehicle, sometimes vehicle demand is so high that they're making door glasses in multiple facilities or using multiple molds, and the molds ain't going to be 100% identical. So based on the mold that they make the pattern for, like Dodge Charger was a really bad one for it. You'd almost nobody had good Dodge Charger patterns except for every now and again it would fit. Turns out Chrysler has 6 different places that are making the door glass for a Charger. And you can buy a cheap Charger, you're going to get a tempered piece of a tempered front window. You buy a more expensive one and it comes with a laminated front window. So there's little things like that too that show you that they're not all the same. And we expect the pattern database to fit every one of them, even though the glass is what's different, not the pattern. And so there's that. And, Chrysler's not the only one with that issue. So sometimes if you get a bad top edge, but the thing is, if we all know how to hand cut, top edges are a non issue, anyways. You line it up, give yourself a slight bit of overlap where it's wavy, and you just trim that off and then drop it back down to where you want it and squeegee it. You're good. It's almost like, for me, I've been doing it so long and just accepted it that I do it without thinking. Where somebody who believes that because the top edge is cut and so it should fit and it doesn't fit, so they're just going to hope that it flies. Once they realize they can cut it, it's like a whole new thing and a whole new set of gears turning in their head saying, oh my God, what am I going to do with this? And it can be a struggle. But once you get used to doing that, like I said, for me, it's second nature. I don't even realize I do it. You know, when I go to put a pattern up, if the top edge doesn't look good to me, I bump it up, trim it, bump it down, set it, and it's all that quick too. So 125 for PPF and tint. That's pretty cheap. That's like super cheap. Maybe I should have talked to Film and Vinyl and saw about reselling theirs. Maybe I should talk to all of them and resell all of them and just give everybody options. Because, you know, it just seems like the thing to do. But I know that Computer Cut's one of the expensive ones out there. And I run it for dirt cheap. Computer Cut also has, you know, if you want to dabble in graphics and everything, they got a free graphics department. If you need a logo made, they'll do it for free. You have an online folder, so you have a database that's always available to you right there. Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing. And you know, shaving windows, personally, I think it's cool, but I don't for for your business, I don't think it's as cool. Just because it takes extra time. Now, if you're not busy enough where extra time is plentiful, then by all means set yourself above other people. But if you got a good cut top edge, you shouldn't have to shave it and nobody will know the difference. Don't get me wrong, a tinner should be able to know the difference. A customer should. And your goal in life is to make sure the customer's happy. And if the customer thinks his tint job's perfect, far be it from you to tell him it's not. And that's just my take on that, you know, because what we're really running here is a business. We're not running a contest, you know. We want to be the best that we can be to the point that it makes every single customer happy, you know, and that's our goal. Sometimes we get consumed with trying to impress other tinners or trying to be better than other tinners. And, you know, sometimes that'll take it out of you. And you got to remember, why are we doing this? We're doing this to make a living because it's your job and it should be fun enough to want to do it every day. Sometimes we can get away from that. Oh, look at he unmuted himself. What time is it, Alex?
It's that time, but I got one thing I gotta do before I hop off, and
That's
that
dumb.
is um
Unless it's fun.
it's not, what is it? What's his name? Rick Tallman.
Oh, that guy. Oh, let's not talk to that guy.
Who
Yeah, so there's definitely better priced options out there. 99 a month is probably about as cheap as you're going to find. And they go up from there, you know, all the way up to crazy prices. And honestly, it shouldn't matter the price. I mean, we got to keep it within reason. I mean, none of us really want to spend the most money out there, but we shouldn't, you know, anything $300 or less a month, we really shouldn't bat an eyelash at. And if we are batting an eyelash at it, maybe the platter ain't the thing for us right now because we're not busy enough. Because honestly, what is that? One tint job? So you get that out of the way at the beginning of the month and it's paid for. But keep in mind, if you start counting cost as how many tint jobs does it cost? Before you know it, rent could cost X amount of tint jobs, and the plotter software costs a tint job, and this costs a tint job, and that costs a couple of tint jobs, and before you know it, you're tinting a lot of cars before you start making money. So it adds up quick. It matters, but it doesn't have to matter that much. There is a lot of wiggle room and pricing for something like that. Because even at $300 a month, that's $75 a week. If you work 5 days a week, that's $15 a day. $15 a day for somebody to cut your patterns for you. And if you're tinting every single day, it's $15 out of each job, which isn't that much. And that's at $300 a month. At $100 a month, it's a whole lot less out of each job. Obviously, it's a third of that. So it's like $5 per day. You was having to send logos.
Yeah. Yeah,
Did
I
you
had to
get it?
send it to an Avery rep, and then I had to send it to Dustin Hall from Eastman.
Okay.
So, yep, we're
Look
good.
look at Rick making you play nice with Avery. I'd have been like, no, I'll send you the copy and you can send it to whoever you want to. I
uh,
only talk to those people when I have to, and I don't feel like I have to.
oh man, I don't know. I don't know. I know it's not like some of the people's fault, but I know it's some of the people's fault, and I don't know. I
Well,
don't
the
know
thing
what to
is that
actually.
the people's fault that it is are people that we don't ever get to meet. They
No,
they make the people that we like be the bad guys. And that's
they're the ones posting the pictures of their office parties.
yeah. And it's like, who even are you? Hell, at least even like Lumar, Lumar's got some pretty big people in there, and they rub elbows with people. They
I can't
meet
even
people.
remember. I can't even remember. It was them popping champagne, and there's like party balloons and all this, and they were like, you know what makes us the best? And then I said something like a smart ass comment, and then you commented under mine. You're like, yeah, sounds about right, or something like that. I don't know if you remember.
You party at everyone else's expense. Yeah, got it.
Yeah, pretty much.
All right. Enough about Avery. I did not want to talk about them today, but whatever.
Oh man. Well,
Anyways, we
hey,
should bid everybody a fair adieu. Adieu. And we can certainly catch back up with you next week
later.
on Tuesday.